Cool. How's everyone?
Good. Great.
Good.
Awesome. I'm excited to unbundle the whole CORD-19 pipeline and understand finally what's happening and how we can basically streamline it. The never-ending odyssey of the CORD-19.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So maybe let's start from Anton, you sharing that Notion thing. Are you at the laptop?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just post it in Slack and is anybody like needs the link on Zoom itself too?
It's in the Slack, right?
Yes, Slack Team Literature Review NLP.
Yeah.
So everybody got the link?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so this this links demonstrates pretty much what actually known to me, right? The guy who essentially touching pretty much every processing that happens within CoronaWhy, and I pretty much know only first stage of pre-processing, and then I know that it ends up in the demo, right, in the Power BI widget by Makani. Everything in between, I know it exists. Some of the pieces I also touched, etc. But in terms of the journey of our small document, you know, that ended up in CORD-19 as a full text, and then we kind of got all of this kind of like, okay, this table was extracted. This piece was identified as a UMLS term to represent that one. All of that, how it ends up eventually in our literature review demo, I have no idea. Like that link is missing. And if I'm in those shoes, like I would imagine nobody else kind of can tell the journey of our small document. So in a sense, that's what this whole process we started kind of like reconstructing a long time ago, right? And me and Mike Hani will probably already send a couple of ships towards that direction, and some of them get back with some of the information, but a lot of them crashed. So in a sense, what we need to do is, or at least like what I wanted to do is get a better understanding of stage 2 that happens within vertical teams. And that's where I need help. And I think like Alex, are you on call here, right? Yes. So this is where you will be a huge help, because for task ties, you're familiar with pipeline a lot. And at this point, let me, like, if you go on Notion and just click on task ties pipeline, for example, the only thing that at least right now we need to identify is what is the input, right? Exactly what is the output. Just the same example as for stage 1. You could see like a toy example. We have a simple one JSON file out of the like a CORD-19 data set, and then like there is a specific like repo that runs on it and creates the output. Now, like I would like to see the same thing, just again example of building for task ties, right? So where the document that feeds into like whatever, Google Colab notebook or Python notebook, or it's already a code, etc. And then example of an output, right? And where it goes. And the moment we get this, we will have this journey of one document, you know, going through stages, etc. towards this. Because we know that this journey happens, right? But we never describe it. We all have like all of this different, I recently learned this term Bobomatic approach. So you have automated pipeline, but instead of auto, you have Bob at different stages, and trying to identify all of these Bobs, but people come and go. That's why it's like so challenging to do, and so on. So we need essentially do this for every vertical team that touches any piece of data that ends up in the demo, right? And this is what we have the effort of. We have a channel pipeline to database that is currently, we have Mike Honey and Nick Gruff over there. But that is more of a like overarching thing. Right now, we need to create this input data for that channel in a sense, right? This is essentially what this notion is all about. Just showing here is like a code base in whatever format it is. Here is input output. So in a sense, that channel could kind of work on this overall architecture of the pipeline. And then we could also identify like on a granular level, okay, task ties are currently, for example, like Alex, I know you're working on this, right? Kind of like, okay, here is input, output, etc. And now like we have all of these tasks on the Trello board of identifying like this piece, etc. So even before coming to those tasks, we just need to define well like this this journey. Yeah, does make sense?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. In my dream, this would slowly expand because the demo includes a lot of data from other people outside of CoronaWhy. That I've, like a little magpie, as we'd say in Australia, I've gone and grabbed data from all over, but almost all of that, I think all of that is open notebooks like on Kaggle, and the people publish their source code. And some of them have stopped updating, or they're very sporadic when they update it. So in my dream, if we've got like a pipeline and we've got methods and we've got an engine, we could start forking those different notebooks and running them ourselves. So we're not reliant on the original to doing the update.
Yeah, and so Mike, that's one thing that I'm working on, or trying to work on, I guess, with Christine's notebook, and trying to segment out those different modules. And so one thing that I've documented so far, kind of back to Anton's point, is are the inputs, and then but they're all self-contained inside Kaggle. So I also have to get those not just defined, but also tied back. And so obviously, as Anton's saying, that's the definition is the first step. But do you have a place where all of your stuff has been, all of your inputs have been, I guess, defined for the demo? Power BI?
I have like notes in a Kaggle notebook, but it's not really explicit and detailed.
Gotcha.
Okay. I'll share my screen for a sec to give you a quick idea. So I've got this Hyperion dumping ground notebook with all my different visualizations. And this is the one for the literature review. And underneath this, I've got this input data section. So it's like, here's the main data sets. It also uses metadata from CORD-19. Study design comes from over here. So it's more like just some notes and some pointers rather than at the level of detail that I imagine we'd need for this. But yeah, that covers everything that's going in. So some of these, like this guy's work is all Kaggle notebooks. So potentially we could, well, he's still updating it at the moment, but potentially we could fork that into something that we're running ourselves outside of Kaggle, potentially.
Yeah. Well, the input section is critical.
Yeah.
So,
what we could do, just kind of quick remark in terms of even before forking the code, right, of other, like outside of CoronaWhy, initially, even just having that data anchored into our dataverse would be a huge thing, right? Because right now, if it's outside, even though, again, Kaggle, more or less reliable source, but it's still kind of outside of our reach. So in terms of first, like I see it as a two-step process. First one is, if we identify the data coming from somewhere, we first essentially cache it on our dataverse, right? but then we're figuring out, okay, so how it gets into database, because in the metadata we'll have it, oh, the data comes from Kaggle notebook, this one. And we're kind of like, oh, wait a second. So we need to rebuild that notebook. Boom, we have a task for Trello board and to find some community member who wants to do this. But since now it's like this information is simply not available, right? Just kind of, that's why it becomes like extremely hard to, first of all, identify the task, then define what should be done, because it's always like, oh, go somewhere on Kaggle, find that link, and you get lost, right? So as we speak, in that like Notion, I'm adding essentially like this. I just added this section, Mike honeypot icon. This is essentially Mike honey. Please like essentially copy and paste all of your notes, all of the sources. It shouldn't be even like this description. It's just like this raw dump, and then like we'll play with it and make it more structured as we speak. But right now we're just kind of like this raw links, and then it will make this as an anchor point for the rest of us of working on this, because I know Alex was also like third attempt to streamline our data pipelines, etc. At least we had, remember Alex, we started with CORD-19 as essentially AI tool curation team. Then within like team search, there was a similar effort, etc. So again, we did it multiple times, right? We already, like, at least I definitely learned a lot. It just kind of like, okay, the moment when you start traversing this tree, breadth first search doesn't work, right? We just need, and depth first search doesn't work. We tried both. We need, I forgot what's the call of this day, when you also kind of keep track of the source and sink, right? And luckily we have more than one source and sink. So we have all of these different stages. So the search process this time won't be, you know, as hard and difficult.
So it sounds like I should work on pushing the data sets into the Dataverse if they don't already exist, like the ones that I'm gathering from people outside of CoronaWhy. Maybe that's the first step. So at least we've got that as a source, and then we can have the notes in the Dataverse to say this is where it came from. And then that's a guide for people coming in the future to pick up that and say, well, maybe we don't need to rely on that Kaggle.
Well, so in a sense, right now, what I'm saying is, right, so we have, so stage 4 is our demo. Stage 3, right now, this is essentially a missing piece. It's like all of this notes, what Mike just said, that all of this data you grab to make the demo, right? So we need to identify that. And now if it's third-party dependency, okay, it's fine, right? Right now it's out of our control, but we need to identify the sources that comes within CoronaWhy. And some of them would be exactly that point that Alex is doing for his section of a pipeline, right? And then we'll be able like to connect them. And then, you know, we got that, you know, lightning bolt actually like hitting where it should hit. And right now, so stage 2 is essentially where Alex's work is concentrated, right? And yours, Mike, is stage 3. So right now it's like 2 missing, like in this document, essentially, like I need content to fill it up. Have you guys used Notion before? Or you're just observing right now as a website?
Yeah, I've not heard of it.
So again, it's just like right now, relatively popular tool. I used it like for quite a while already for personal use, but recently one of the teams, the Team Fibrosis one, the leadership of that team kind of like, oh, you know, they started using Notion. I'm like, oh, wait a second, I also use Notion. And I saw the huge benefits of essentially missing piece as a tool to how to collect all of these different like Google Docs, you know, Google Collabs, etc., all in one spot. So that's why I proposed to use it this one, because it's kind of my personal like pipeline. I'm collecting right now all of these notes and data, but there are collaborative features. So I could, I mean, right now as a guest, so if you just do a Google account for your Notion thing, like whatever, like attached to it, and you should be able like to edit this document yourself as well. I think, let me just double check.
I'm just creating my account. It's saying
yeah. So edit comments, like duplicate, etc., like all allowed here. So you should be able to just go. Oh, by the way, one of the neat features, if you have an account in settings, there is a check mark to turn on dark mode, so it won't look as bright and white as before. So yeah, just use all of. Well, I mean, like if it was white, only white, like they introduced dark mode again maybe a year ago or so, when that like wave of dark mode hit everybody. Like every normie was now, oh, dark mode is cool. But as a hardcore guy, I was into dark modes even before that. So I was, you know, like for example, Google Colab. Do you use dark mode or not? And there is a dark mode, and it's actually amazing.
I never used dark mode.
And even like before like Google Colab team introduced dark mode, I, in a sense, like I needed to create my own, like, you know, custom styles just to make it dark, etc. I had it somewhere in the repo. Only me and a couple of my friends were using. But anyway,
beach, so you know you can't. Dark mode's unusable when you're down at the beach. So do I join as it's saying like join for myself or with my team?
Yeah.
Just
probably
myself?
do it. Yeah, because again, it's a commercial product, etc., etc. Like I have a team account that I could add you there, but even there, like it's not needed. So if you go, whatever, it's onboarding for this. Look, can you go to the link again to this one, and just kind of like refresh it? It should be.
This is Australian internet.
Yeah, now you can click edit, or go through like Mike Honey or something, and yeah, I will see that you're kind of contributing.
Yeah, and then add a block.
Oh, so just go like click inside Mike Honey.
All right. Copy.
And just copy paste there.
Oh, I'll edit this, but yeah, that's good.
Yeah, okay.
Making a start, yeah.
I'll just move it inside this page, Mike Honey, if you go. So there are like all of this hierarchy of, it's all markup files. The benefits of that, everything we do here, we could easily export either as HTML or markup files. So we immediately have our documentation of the process.
Yeah.
So
yeah, keep the links as well. That's nice.
Yeah, so I mean, there are a lot of like if you find there are lots of features for Notion. I just don't want to like sell it as a tool. It just right now we just need it as this copy and pasting thing that I could quickly like reorganize a little bit bits and pieces of nuggets of information into more structured format. And then I'll just kind of like get all of these links, and I'll be able to come up with this essentially stage 3 pipeline. And we will I will need the same from Alex, from you as well, right? So
I just added them actually under test ties. So I just added the data dependencies that I've identified.
Oh, okay, awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. And I mean, the other thing that I have noted is that I thought was helpful was basically the models that we're running, and maybe this part doesn't apply to Mike as much, but like what each model does more or less. I don't know. Like, is there a place for that kind of thing, or am I jumping ahead of? Am I getting ahead of us?
Regarding like you mean like model artifacts, right? All of the like trained model weights, etc. That then get used.
Yeah, exactly.
So for that piece, so I think right now it's all about just kind of like if we have the model weights already, and then how like the notebook that applies them, it's already good, because like we're right now in a sense centric surrounding how the document from CORD-19, go through all of these different pipelines. And now training piece, it's adjacent to this process, but right now it's not that important because right now we just want to get a really clear picture that we could tell anybody who joined in you, okay, this is how the documents get processed, and this is how, the evolution of, enrichment of data happens. And then it's kind of like, oh, wait a second. So we use this model, like where it's coming from. For example, for pre-processing step, I could say, oh, we just use Sky-Spacey model version like 0.2.5, right? Because I was kind of building that. But if regarding this, it's a total black box. I have no idea how it was trained, right? So in a sense, size model version, let's say 1 or 0.1 or something, okay, we treat it the same way. But then, like, after we're done with this, obviously we could kind of take task-size model, 0.1 version, just kind of like, oh, wait a second, can we improve it? We have much more data to train it on, but it's a kind of like separate task from literature review itself, right?
Sure. Yeah. So we'll worry about that later. We'll just worry about core data dependencies right now.
Yes. Yeah. But I mean, like, you just make a mention, like, okay, we have dependency on this model, and you can create a sub-page on Notion that later on, that will be kind of a context setup for somebody who will be retraining the models, essentially. But the benefits that those people will see, like, oh, wait a second, why do I do this retraining? Why is that? Because you can't go and talk to Christina anymore, who had that context, right? They probably need to figure out, like, oh, wait a second, I need to speak with Alex because he knows what's up. But why do you need this weight on your shoulders of communicating with all the people if you could just simply point them out, like, okay, here is the document, how it's used, and it's in this pipeline. And then the person, because every data scientist, even when they work with a small task, right, everybody wants to have this end pipeline. And that's why it's so hard within CoronaWhy, just because this overarching pipelines are not existing yet. At least there are no documented parts of it. But the moment when we're done with this, like, I think it will be much easier to onboard people to grab and retrain the NAR to extract time points or something. Because I know we have specific Google Colab for that. It's not attached to anywhere. It takes some data from Google Drive, puts in other Google Drive. Or maybe it's already at the stage of taking the data from Dataverse and putting on the Dataverse, but it's still detached from the main Bobomatic pipeline. And this is what we do here.
Okay. Yeah, I'm on board with that. Sounds good.
So, I mean, everything, like, essentially you're adding here is like perfect. So we do this, and then, like, if you have piece of code attached to anything, again, to just add it there, or a pointer, references, again, don't worry about how it looks like, because, like, I mean, I'm using Notion for my own notes, etc., and I know how to make it slightly more structured and clear. It just consider this as a data dump and just like throw everything there. And then we'll clean, and eventually we'll have essentially this one document, stage 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can like, oh, it's kind of awesome. So how is stage 1 is done? And you can kind of see, okay, pre-processing code, kind of get it. Ideally, README file has some nice information from there. And anybody who joins CoronaWhy and just simply onboards will be able just to trace everything. If you see an output, then you can kind of see, oh, task size takes this input and so on. And from Notion end, I know that they announced that they're going to launch the API for all of this. So ideally, that could be like this engine for documentation as well. And then, you can go and kind of grab input output, but I'm going ahead of myself over here in terms of plans.
So I should start moving I've got a lot of bits and pieces of data coming in, like I download a zip file from here, and
so just create a list in that Notion, right? And so short description, why, where you get the data, link, and where you use it, or why do you need to do this? Because I think nobody has actually good understanding if you look at the screenshot of the demo itself, right? So how all of this widget works. because it's great. It's a collection of widgets, and then they're all interconnected. First of all, ideally, that would be great to kind of document this and that. But then it will be great to have, you know, for example, these bits of data and attach, just make a screenshot of the widget. Like this is useful, like for that one. I think that would be also helpful just for people to see and kind of contribute to this as well. Because right now I have a feeling that we have lots of people who are like backend engineers, and they think with this, oh, I'm taking data, you know, on one spot and put it in the other spot. That's, I think, it won't be that hard to put them into like this Notion framework of how we collect the data. But then for them, it's still kind of like, okay, so the data here, the data is there, how it's got used. And then they get, like, people lose motivation immediately. So, oh, so I did this NAR small chunk of that pipeline, but why? Like, where is my result? Like, where could I show a link? For example, like, what before we had this link of our demo, we even had any like links for people to send. Like, what do you do for CoronaWhy? I'm doing something. Now we finally got this Power BI widget, and it's great, right? Now we have suddenly like, this is what we do. Here is awesome widget, and here is the video of how it could be used much better than PubMed.
I use it in every call.
Exactly. So we have that. But now I kind of realize, like, wait a second, all of the people I interact on the backend stuff, like, the revolution haven't changed. I'm like, why is that? And I realized, wait a second, people who actually contributed to that demo, they don't have this like ownership piece of that demo, right? I know, for example, like for Mike, it worked because, again, he did that demo, like, but what happens to, for example, Alex? Like how the data that he was part of Task to essentially building all of this, so how it's actually represented. So I really would like to see actually like the trace of simply screenshots. You know, here is, for example, like if you look at the toy example I made, right? So here's an input, just simply a screenshot from Kaggle, like a metadata browser. This little document of CORD-UAD, like ZOW something, right? So that document, in a sense, ended up as an output, right? You know, kind of like it's like kind of horrible looking, not human readable JSON, but still, I don't know where that document gets used later on, but it got used somewhere, right? Because it was part of that huge tarball of Sky Spacey Vector. So I really want to have attached a screenshot where it looks in our demo. Actually, you know what? We could probably do it this way, because I could do a search on CORD-UAD, right?
No.
No?
No.
Can I do PMC? Can I do?
You can't search, like you can browse them, but you can't search on them. The search is only on the, you know, the named entity values that came back from the tarball. It's not like a global search. I can name one, or if you pick one, you can click on the link and you'll get the. It'll go through the DOI to the actual paper.
So if you click on toy example input, and then there's like first link that is like S3 something, so there's some random bucket, you essentially have this full text. And I have paper ID, PMC or something. And search. What if I just copy and paste abstract or something, or like portion of abstract? Will it work?
Probably not. I would say do it the other way around. So like, if you start from one of these, then this gives you like that's the DOI link.
Okay, so if I have DOI link, is there a way to filter out by DOI?
Well, if you select the row in the table, it'll filter all the other visuals eventually.
Hold on, I think I don't have, so DOI is not present in the
I was thinking to
JSON.
do it the other way around. Yeah, so you go back through the metadata to get the CORD UID for that DOI. And then that would give you, like, the CORD UID is the key to pretty much everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Like that comes out in the literature. Oh, maybe it doesn't come out in the literature review stuff. Yeah, the literature review stuff's a bit tricky because they didn't ask for, you know how that was sparked by Kaggle's round 2.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't ask for CORD UID in people's data submissions. So, of course, no one put it because it wasn't.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? I figured out like how we do the screenshots. I will just trace it, like as you said, like trace it back. I'll take the whatever, because I'm seeing that there is only like 26,000 papers in the literature review, right?
Yeah,
But full text is 88,000.
yeah. I read
So not necessarily that two example is actually represented in literature review. There is a huge chance it's not.
Yeah, well, all these ones down here will be the ones that are mentioned in the literature review. I think the pink one is, yeah, pink one is the task ties papers. But there's not as much overlap because I had to cut off I did it by publication date, so I didn't run out of Puff and Power BI. There's limits on like the file size on this infrastructure, and the performance is obviously it's struggling a little bit as well. So I did it from the start of the 1st of June. So there's probably a lot of submissions for older papers if we can expand the scope of this slowly. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll definitely like do this, like do off like screenshots, probably offline because it will require me to redo the toy example run.
Yeah, but go backwards. So if you've got the DOI link, then you should be able to find that in the metadata file.
Yeah, but again, this screenshot would be in a sense kind of stage 1, jumping immediately stage 3, etc. Right? So won't be in a sense of, it will be interesting to figure out like how it's got enriched by task ties entities. You know, I think that will be kind of beneficial for us. So I will identify like this document, and then we will see, Alex, if that document actually got processed within what task ties notebooks are doing, because maybe it's not, right?
Yeah, let me find one that's that is identified in task ties, and then actually it's not too hard to do. I can probably share my screen again. So pink ones, maybe there was a lot of them here, wasn't there? So there's like 7 papers here, and 6 of them are from came through from task ties. They're answering the question, what's the incubation period? So there's those. I need to make this full screen. Start again. So incubation periods. There's 7 papers. These ones, that tells you which ones came through from task ties.
Okay.
Details about them, and over here we've got like.
Okay, awesome.
Link. There's the link there, so we can pick. There's a nice one of those.
So in this view, it's actually a combination of manual literature reviews done by Kaggle teams and Christine's data.
Yeah. The manual reviews stopped in around May, so they don't actually appear.
What's
very
the
much.
priority actually? We first take the whatever is manual review and then add Christine's stuff. Like if
And
sample
there's
size is
also-
present in both.
There's two others that are considered. There's this guy, David Mazzetti, who's running Kaggle notebooks, that he's still updating them regularly. And there's another bunch of authors which are, where are they? They were winners in the Kaggle competition as well, but they only did like three, I think they did 3 questions they tackled, and they stopped updating their notebook. Oh gosh, it's a bit of a thread. The little team. I managed to get this guy to reply, but he hasn't actually done updates for a while. Javier Sastre. So they did, someone going in here. I think only one question, temperature or humidity. So I've been including their stuff as well, just to try and make it as broad as possible.
So you see, guys, why it's all like so complicated, because in a sense, we're not only like, so we created this demo collectively, and not only CoronaWhy, but also outside people. And now what, in a sense, what we're trying to do is reproduce it, right?
Yeah.
And reproducible science, it's like, now imagine what happens in academia world when it's on a bigger scale, right? And then also like the same issues that we have as people come, people go in terms of their volunteering contributions. But the same thing is also in academia. Like you join, like, let's say you're a master's student, it's 2 years only, maybe 3 if you like take it long for you. So 2-3 years. If you're a PhD, okay, you do 5-6 years depending on the field. But still, after 6 years, you're done. Only like a small portion of people stay in that community. And for example, like if you look at like Charlie Hoyt, okay, he's still maintaining Bell, all of like other stuff from his academia research days. But for majority, it's gone, like the connection is gone. So reproducibility is, I mean, earlier today, Arthur and I, we had like a sync up call, like just to set up a context for this. And Arthur was like genius and naming it like Odyssey, Team Literature Review Odyssey. Because I'm like, man, it's literally the same thing. Like it's an epic effort what we do here, right? And in a sense, like there should be some story behind all of this. And somebody actually should just observe of like all of our calls, etc., and then just like write a book about how it was all done, because it's like really
Sweat and tears
I still want that podcast series on the first 24 hours. Remember that idea?
Yeah.
Yes.
You could do like 24 episodes of a podcast. So, okay, hour 1, Arthur woke up.
By the way, I just got the idea of another stage too. It's altmetrics course that I actually was doing altmetric. I think the latest version was, I was also touching so I could fill it up. So I'm already seeing the benefits of Notion and the session we're doing over here. So
Yeah, but yeah, I think it will have a big impact. It can have a big impact. I agree with you, Anton, about like showing people how their work is like being presented to the outside world and being used by medical researchers and so on, and connected with, you know, the recordings of the calls that Arthur's on with people. Yeah, I think that's a great idea to try and get more people engaged and keep them engaged in the working on the pipeline.
Yes. Okay, so in a sense, we got some of the information going. So let's think about through again, like this document that we see at the end of the demo that goes through all of these teams. and let's try to kind of like seeing what piece of code, collab notebooks, etc. touched it, and just simply put it into Notion to document it. And then we will see what type of storytelling we can do. And next time, based on that, we could start now discussing more in details. For example, okay, so why is this notebook was run, and like, is it optimal to do it this way or not? So Alex, the work you were doing essentially will be, we could kind of see how to prioritize which notebooks are more important to right now look into it, which one, or because right now I know the task types repo has bazillion of notebooks, right? But I simply don't know which notebook is first to take and essentially kind of make it run on like on Kubernetes, for example.
Yeah. Well, and to be honest, I mean, I think the stuff might be outdated on GitHub, and I think Christine's notebook is probably better. Plus, it provides like a progression that we know already works, right?
Yes.
So right now, I'm kind of ignoring GitHub.
No, I mean, the thing is actually GitHub right now has all of the latest that at least was for like for final round of submission on Kaggle. I don't know whether any of, because I mean, when Christine did that, she sent to me like, okay, here's like 4 notebooks we use for Kaggle submission. Like, how do we do it for Kaggle? And I'm like, I don't know how you guys did it for round 1. Well, we compiled it all into one. I'm like, so just go and do it. But she asked me to just simply upload to the GitHub repo the collabs themselves. So I kind of did that. But again, I'm disconnected from the input-output things.
Right.
But anyways, I think it's the same thing as what you were doing. Like, you're on the right track anyways.
Yeah. So I had one question just about Mongo. And like not having worked with it before. Well, okay. So, and I realize maybe this is too specific for this conversation, so tell me if it's better elsewhere. But so Mongo, we've got all of the metadata in there. Do we have full text articles as well?
No,
just metadata.
Yes.
Okay.
So in a sense, what we did is we have collections that just takes the metadata CSV file and just collects there. But then, for example, like if you look at the like this, like when Mike Honey showed us this example, there were this altmetric column, right? So altmetric, for example, like I don't know where Mike takes that data, but in our Mongo, for example, we have a collection for altmetric data that has the same key CORD-UID as the metadata in. So like I assume the usage supposed to be, or eventually in our pipeline, it will be, we have essentially CORD-19 as a raw data input, all of those essentially CSV files. It's on our Dataverse as a data layer solution. Then if I want to do altmetrics, our pipeline takes all of this and sends it into Mongo. So all of this essentially intermediately results of enriching the data sets. Altmetric is an example, it's on the Mongo. If it's just simply metadata, it's there. But if it's the way I know how it works today, but I don't know again, like how people use it, is all of this NAR entities, so Skyspace, Science Space, Vector, etc. They put on Elasticsearch because Elasticsearch is a better tool to kind of query NARs and just get the output there. Eventually, the plan is to hide, like even Mongo, Elasticsearch, etc. They will be all hidden behind the like API endpoint. So in a sense, you don't need to know, like, okay, if I want to query altmetric, should I go MongoDB or Elastic, right? This is kind of right now we have complexity just because we're at the state of having this complexity, right? But eventually, like we will like kind of, so all of those stages in a Notion, they'll be all separated. That's the whole, like the goal is to have these different stages that the stage within it kind of knows where to take the data in and where to throw, like where to put it. And then since we know these connections, we create endpoints, interfaces that you don't need to know all of those, oh, it's from MongoDB or not. But again, it's kind of, again, it's a 2 steps, at least 2 steps from now where we are. And right now we are kind of like, oh, everybody, first of all, doesn't know that different stages exist. And
Right.
where is the data? Is it in Mongo, Elasticsearch? Who knows? One Bob created it in Mongo, another Bob will create it's based on Elasticsearch. Hence why the difficulty and the hiccups you're running into is kind of like, okay, why do we use Mongo for this, etc.
Yeah. So but Mongo and Elastic are going to fall under the pre-processing stage.
So it's right now, it's an interface between pre-processing and stage 2, or at least this is my mental model. So maybe we'll discover something that we have even more complex stage, because literally I kind of knew that Mike was using different Kaggles of outside, but at least I thought that was Kaggle notebooks of people within CoronaWhy. So it always started, within CoronaWhy, then Kaggle was used as a platform, and then it ended up there. But it turns out we're pulling from everywhere. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay. So my mental model is even simpler than the reality. Much more simpler than reality.
Yeah.
So, but you're correct. So there's Mongo is just this interface of, actually, you know what? Let me fill up, because I got this idea that Altmetrics, I could fill up that pipeline piece, and then you'll kind of see how Altmetrics was created, for example. Yeah. And then maybe some of the data that that you ingest for task ties was probably done the same way. So we'll kind of figuring out so who put the data into Mongo, right? And then it's another this piece. So eventually for stage 2, we'll have multiple documents that will know input output points. And then somebody, probably Arthur, will love to do this, just to create a diagram of how they're all connected.
Yeah.
And
I'm ready to do that.
Yes.
Cool.
Okay. Well, yeah. # diagram master. It sounds like a great progress. I finally understand some of the pieces, and let's maybe reconnect tomorrow or day after tomorrow on the progress of assembling this master document, and see where it leads us.
Yeah. So again, think about that document that just travels through this, right? And just whatever format to document it, screenshot of how it looked like before, output, all of that type of thing. This is what kind of helped me to create this initial set of things. I kind of okay, here's a document and it's ended up there. So how was the journey of that small document? And look, with just this simple framework, relatively quick call, boom, right? We're I'm already getting more information where to do this reconstruction.
Thanks for organizing it at a time of day that I can participate. But if we can just try and do it sort of 24 hours or more, plan it 24 hours or more in advance.
Yeah.
This time of day is really busy for me. I have a lot of projects going with people in the US, so
we'll try to do better with calls, and kind of continue to do, if not daily, just per channel calls or something. So there's a person that helps organize calls for separate initiatives.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Sounds good, guys. Thanks everyone.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for jumping on the short notice.
Thank you all. Great
Bye-bye.
talk.